So we already knew there was a little bit of that sequel-ish stuff going on, right? Now we're being told in the rumor mill that they're actually just doing something that we have seen IP do before. So number one is Terminator has done this multiple times. And Star Wars, which basically took a lot of the extended universe novelization stuff and basically wiped all that out when they came back to make their centerpiece movies. So this is not something that is untried.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me as always is Mr. Brian Schultz. The Void. And usually the Void consists of other things outside of the superhero genre, but we got so much to discuss. First line item that we want to go over is the Avengers Doomsday trailers that we will be getting, as well as the strategy being employed here, because there is a strategy, as well as a strategy doing with the Punisher. ScarJo's involvement in Batman 2 is very interesting after Emma Stone said no. The Batman villains, you got Brad Pitt. I'm wondering who's he gonna play? Probably Hush, who knows? And we'll see if we get to some other stuff that's on the line item here, Tarantino and Russell Crowe. Let's see if we get to those. But first up, let's go to Avengers Doomsday. Brian, they're releasing Endgame in September of 2026 before Doomsday.
In the theater, bringing it back.
Yes, in the theater. So
Notable.
let's see if they take the top spot again from Avatar. I see the strategy, Brian, and I think it's quite interesting. It makes sense. Why does it make sense? Because if this is a direct sequel to Endgame, you forget about everything else in the middle, which is good because there's nothing to remember really. Other than, incursions and but outside of that, who cares really? You know what I'm saying?
Cut to Simu Liu doing the Michaela Moroni face.
Here's the one thing that if they pull on this thread, Brian, which they can still use, was when Tony Stark, I don't know who he was helping up. He said, time tends to, if you mess with time, it tends to mess with you back. Something like that to that effect.
Oh, it's Steve. Not a coincidence.
Yes.
Steve that he helps up.
Yes. They could play it off, because most people say, that has to do with, with Thanos coming back and stuff like that. But what if it wasn't? What if Captain America says, Tony Stark told me this. I never knew quite what it meant till now. I think this direction is very, very smart, Brian. Your thoughts on this possible play that they're making on making us forget pretty much what happened in the middle between Endgame. Let's forget about No Way Home is his own thing. But outside of
that's about forgetting stuff too, though. Don't get it twisted. That whole thing is about erasing things too. So I think at the very least, this is very smart marketing. Whether it's very smart storytelling, of course, TBD. So I had a very visceral, negative reaction when I first saw this headline when you sent it to me. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, this kind of was already happening in the sense of we knew, or we think we know, that part of the catalyst for Doom's arrival and this retconning of the Kang situation is this idea of the impact of incursions, and we're tracing the origin point to one of the more notable gaps in MCU storytelling, which is Steve at the end of Endgame putting the stones back and ending up with Peggy. But we've never seen the process by which that happened, and we've never explored his choice to be selfish for one moment in his life. So we already knew there was a little bit of that sequel-ish stuff going on, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're being told in the rumor mill that they're actually just doing something that we have seen IP do before. So there's two franchises that have done something like this already. Mm-hmm. So number one is Terminator has done this multiple times. Where they have tried to basically go from the endpoint of T2 forward. And then the next movie basically is like, we screwed that up. Let's go back to the end of T2 and go forward again. And Star Wars, which basically took a lot of the extended universe novelization stuff and basically wiped all that out when they came back to make their centerpiece movies. So this is not something that is untried. And we knew Kevin, there was those rumors about, he wants to reset 25% and blah, blah, blah. But like, they might have just gotten that deep into this and been like, this is not working. And finally someone was like, we just gotta rip the Band-Aid off. And we're going to make everything that happened that we screwed up, we're going to make that an alternate universe of its own, an alternate timeline of its own. And the real timeline, the one that worked and made us all the money, is the one we're going to go back to. Again, at the very least, it is smart marketing. We'll see how good storytelling. But I think your point about the re-release of Endgame 3 months before this movie is coming out, I think is the tell. You do that because you want to make a little money, but you also do that because you want people to, at least some people, to have something in that movie fresh in their mind when they go see the next movie. That's why James Cameron puts the old Avatar movies back in right before he starts the next one out, right? It's like, you got to remember where we were because I'm going to build on that somehow. So I think the fact that they announced Endgame is coming to theaters is actually a giveaway that there is more than just a random connection. There is a real beat in that movie at the end of it somewhere that they are going to pull on.
It's all going to be lead back to Cap, Everybody holds Cap in such high regard.
Yes.
And he's the reason why we're in this mess.
Agreed.
That's the game right there.
And I think it's the only way that Chris Evans would have said yes. He clearly was not going to come back to play the same old character.
Nah.
So the only way they were going to get him off the sideline, and I think they were like, do whatever it takes. They were backing up trucks and vaults and all the stuff to his house, but finally just like, we have to give you something interesting as a character. And the interesting thing is you made a choice, and that choice rippled through the entire multiverse with disastrous consequences, which actually makes Cap more interesting, right? Because it's like, what did he say? He's the guy who lays down so the other guy walks over him. Like, he's always been that guy. And in one moment, he chose the one thing that made him happy. If it leads to effectively the end of the multiverse, I mean, that's a tough thing to live with. so it makes him a tragic hero.
Yes.
And that's at least interesting.
Yes. So, hey, obviously, we know we're getting all this show of cameos. Like, hey, they're going to say they're like, I knew it. And whatever the case, whatever lines they're given, trust me, they're not long. They're probably a post-it, like, here, this is your lines. Say that, and Dooms take care of you, and it's a wrap, and it's over. This right here gives me some, I would say, hope for not giving me the urge to get up and do the stairs walk, at least.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a +1 for intrigue. I would argue there is a world. I don't think they'll do this world, but I would argue where this is one of those. This is actually one of those moments where I find myself in the Zack Snyder camp of, if you're going to do this, I would prefer a leaner theatrical cut that focuses more on this, and put the Cameo Fest on Disney Plus in a longer version. If you want people to see, I just feel like there's going to be some extraneous crap where I'm going to be sitting there in the theater being like, checking my watch and being like, how long until this is off the screen so I can get back to what we just talked about, which I do find intriguing.
Yes. But if they were to go
which
that
is
route,
code for every second Channing Tatum is on screen for me.
Yes. And it'll give us more opportunities to see what Simu Liu would have to say about that. He'll be like, you see?
Appalling. Effing appalling. So we talk about marketing, right? So this is +1 for the marketing. We're going to re-release Endgame. We're going to leak out that this is actually more of a direct sequel to Endgame. And we're going to take a veer off the timeline from everything else you've just seen. And oh, by the way, because we've been messing with timelines in that one thing that we got right in Loki, and we've got him at the end holding the strands of time, we kind of actually probably do have this get out of jail free card for making this work, because he can sort of dump exposition. He can kind of give us the what of what's going on, the why and the what, right? Which is an interesting way. So That's plus one. Then we heard that apparently Disney went to the Chris Nolan School of Marketing and said, I will raise you your way to promote. Because what are they doing? How many teasers are we getting for Doomsday?
4.
My God.
Crazy. And they're only being released with the showing of Avatar each subsequent week for 4 weeks.
Correct.
4 different trailers. That's genius. What I'd say, because I joked around with Brian and said I like to go to the theaters on week 3 and 4 to see how many people leave after the trailer is shown.
I will let you know because I will take a video.
Do that, please. I want to see the walk down the stairs when everybody's leaving. Not everybody, but most people are leaving.
Yeah.
Because this is out there in terms of how they want to do this, Brian. This is out there.
Yep.
So your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm joking, but I'm not joking, right? Because what Nolan's done with promotion dating back to Dark Knight and those first 6 minutes in IMAX is this idea of the captive trailer, the trailer that doesn't go online, the trailer that forces you to go to the theater to see this piece of anticipation. And let's look at the dovetailing here. Disney needs Avatar to be a huge hit. Now, you could say there's been nothing more guaranteed than James Cameron, and you'd be right. But you still want to make sure. I mean, the expectations for an Avatar movie are not a standard movie, right? We don't sit here and talk about Avatar movies in terms of 1 billion. We talk about them in terms of 2 billion. We expect 2 billion from these movies. So putting 4 different teasers for Avengers Doomsday, and to be clear, none of these will be released online. Will they leak bootleg? Probably.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a movie like this, you do want to see the real
in its essence. Yes,
of course. So they're each 90 seconds, supposedly. They come out in successive weeks. So yeah, they are guaranteeing repeat business for Avatar. Now, Cameron might complain, but when we start seeing videos of people who watch the teaser and then don't watch his movie, but he's getting the gate receipts regardless. You don't get your money back because you walked out. Although I will say, as a Stubbs A-list member, this is where the A-list really comes in handy because I won't have to pay 4 tickets to go do this. So at the same time, like, it is forcing people to go see this in the same way that the Odyssey, right? 6-minute prologue. You have to go see the IMAX re-release of Sinners in One Battle After Another. And then their trailer is attached to Fire and Ash. Like, and the one they put out in the summer was only attached to the one movie. Like, so yeah, like this, or it was Jurassic World. That was the movie that had the Odyssey teaser that they didn't put out. Still is not online. You still really can't find. So yeah, these studios are trying to extract maximum dollar value out of their properties. But in the case of Avengers, they're getting the 2 birds with 1 stone because they need to get the engine revved on this a year out in a competitive marketplace to get people excited. And I think the combination of the storytelling leak and 4 different teasers, they did it. I mean, they did it. They have found a way to stand out in a month where we are going to be talking about all sorts of trailers.
Yeah. It's brilliant. Brilliant. Considering how big this is. This is because Doomsday is supposed to be huge.
Yeah.
And you can't do regular things with this. You have to think outside of the box, and they did that. Yeah. And let's see how effective that is. I think it's going to be interesting. I'll probably be out in the theaters the 4th week interviewing people because I ain't going to pay for it. But like, yo, what did you think? What did you see? That would be interesting. Because I am not paying those tickets.
Because we've been talking about the weakening box office prospects for this movie, the risk involved with this movie. And it's like, we should be talking about this movie, Doomsday, as a $2 billion lock as well. And we haven't been able to do that. I'm not prepared to say it's a $2 billion lock. But I do think if they are going to true, direct, linear sequel to Endgame, and building this kind of promotional hype, they probably are raising the floor.
Yes,
no matter
absolutely.
how good or bad this movie is, they're raising the floor for the box office probably well north of $1 billion. Now you're probably approaching that Ultron level, that 1.3-ish. You probably now you're more safely getting within range of that. And if the movie's good, now maybe you can take a run at least Avengers 1, which was like 1.6. You know, that's how you should think about this. Like, because they know for them, opening weekend is it. Like they have to come strong with an enormous global opening weekend. And then they got to hope that what they have is good enough to get people excited enough to go back.
Do you think they implement similar tactics, perhaps not a year out? Because we're already at a year out, but sometime out to purchasing tickets for this. Like the Odyssey. The Odyssey is like a year out for Endgame.
Given the way the Odyssey did it only for IMAX. So I don't think they would do this on they wouldn't be able to buy its tickets for 4,000 screens a year in advance. So the question is, certain large formats in certain cities, would they do it? Yes. I think that will become the norm for some of these.
Okay.
Because again, I mean, when the innovators deliver something that makes money, everyone copies. Now, not everyone is, as we know, not everyone's Christopher Nolan, but like generally speaking, the things that he's innovated have led to other people doing those things, right? Like IMAX, he paved the way. Now other people shoot in IMAX. Like this marketing, this marketing is now, his marketing is now being copied, right? Like kind of his style of marketing is being copied. Of course, the advanced sales will be copied for certain event movies. The Odyssey stuff sold out. There's going to be I don't know. I'm sure there is one right now. I'm sure there's a very healthy resale market for those tickets. I'm sure somebody's already made like 3-4x their money on that.
More.
Yeah, probably more.
Yeah. Punisher?
Let's do, because let's not forget Spider-Man, because he's got a trailer coming, but this Punisher special also is of interest to me because it now seems like we are going to see exactly the thing we thought of for Penguin and Batman 2 is going to happen. This is going to happen with this. And I'm very excited about the experiment of what John Bernthal is saying, which is he made a quote about you could literally walk off the set of the Punisher special and onto the set of Brand New Day, and the release is basically going to be side by side, like right on top of each other. That's a great experiment. Let's find out.
Again, Al Pacino, what did I say? What could happen? What we could experiment with? What can we do? And this is just the prime example of doing something on TV that extends to theaters.
Yep.
This is very interesting, and I can't wait to see how this, because it ain't gonna stop. It ain't gonna stop, Brian.
No.
It's gonna be a continuation. Other people experimenting with this idea, and not only because this is just Punisher special, one movie we see, boom, boom, and then we go to the theaters, but we're gonna evolve that into a whole series. Season 1 is over, the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're going to the movies for the big thing. Whatever the case may be, we're seeing this transition right before our eyes, especially look at Stranger Things.
Yep.
So this is again, we're living in very interesting times right now as far as entertainment, and how on different platforms we get to sort of continue the journey on different platforms. Right? I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think also you mentioned Stranger Things. This is something that if Netflix wins the WB bidding, I think you could see them do more of in different ways, right? Like they do not view characters like Batman and Superman as sacred to the big screen. So could you see like a satellite TV series where Batman is facing off with a certain villain or a side villain in a Netflix limited series, but then that series has, a movie behind it that they are promoting coming to the big, of course. Like, so I think this is also interesting because we know Bernthal is very heavily involved with writing and producing this in addition to starring in it. And which means that he is responsible for taking the tonality of the Frank Castle work that we've seen him do in these TVMA R-rated settings and building that bridge in this special, I think, to make it make sense that he could go into PG-13 Brand New Day with our streets level Tom Holland Spider-Man. I'm fascinated because he's not getting a whole season to do that. He's getting like 90 minutes, whatever it is, to do that in like a mini movie to basically take this character from where it was to where it needs to be an ad to Brand New Day. I think he can do it, but success or failure, I love the swing. This is one of those where I'm just like, I love the swing to see if let's see what happens.
Absolutely.
Let's do Batman 2. Because there's been some Batman 2 news involving big names coming up.
Yeah.
Now, I think one has been semi-debunked, but we should still talk about it. But one is confirmed, and Scarlett Johansson is confirmed to be in this.
Yes. As who? I'm still thinking as Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy has been consistently in the Batman the Animated Series and in other iterations as the person who seduces her victims, right? And who better to do it than ScarJo, right? So that's going to be very interesting. What's your take on how this has all transpired?
So there's been, So one is she's confirmed to be taking the part. She canceled several other notable lead roles she had to take the supporting role in this.
She knows it's going to be big.
And then as we heard, she's taking less money up front to fit into the budget, but she's getting more points on the back end. So she's making a big bet on Matt Reeves, which I think is a pretty sound bet that this movie is going to do big numbers. Although I will say, ironically, if this were to end up somehow in the hands of Netflix prior to Batman Part 2 coming out and they change the theatrical window on this.
Oh, deja vu.
Anyway, I also heard a random rumor that she was playing Gilda Gold, who is Harvey Dent's wife, as some sort of inroads to Dent being, because there's also rumors of 2 middle-aged male villains being sought, one of which was attached to another big name actor, but we'll see. But the thinking being maybe one of those middle-aged male villains would be Harvey Dent, Two-Face, and then ScarJo would be playing the wife of that. And I guess Gilda Gold, in some of the comics arcs is her own sort of character. But anyway, so in the Reeves verse, it's not clear, right? Like, is she playing supervillain? Is she playing more sort of streets level character? Right. I mean, he used big name actors kind of all over the place, like somewhere in big roles, somewhere in small roles. So you don't totally automatically know that Scarlett Johansson is, say, the female lead just because she's in the movie. So
I've also heard that, I forget the name, that played his love interest in Mask of the Phantasm, which has been considered one of the best. I think it won some awards, actually.
Yeah, it did.
She could be playing that character as well. So that's interesting. I think the addition of her is very interesting.
I mean, it definitely adds to the intrigue around this movie. I mean, that's a huge get for them. Now, it did say, as we said, he's casting for 2 middle-aged male villains. Now, the name that was attached, and I have heard reports afterwards debunking this for what it's worth, but Brad Pitt's name came up as a possible Batman villain. As I said, there are reports that this is a false rumor and not happening. But how did you feel about that when you saw his name potentially attached to this movie?
I didn't feel any reluctance towards it.
Interesting.
I felt more like, again, like you said, Matt Reeves, he has big name actors in his stuff, and this would be, especially for Brad Pitt, who his star power has risen after F1. I didn't see this as a negative. I saw this as an interesting prospect for characters like Dent, for characters like Hush, who has been rumored to be the villain or one of the villains. So I wasn't opposed to his possible involvement in it.
So the things we know from Reeves, and this goes against the Harvey Dent casting. Reeves has previously indicated, well, not necessarily, but he's previously indicated that the feature villains will be antagonists that we have not seen done in live action before. That he's kind of said that's what he wants to explore. Mm-hmm. I am actually preferring Brad Pitt not be in this as an antagonist. And here's why. I think Brad Pitt, where he is now as an actor, is too big of a star to hide in a movie. I think about F1, right? It's like he is that, like, so much of that movie is him, a showcase of him. And I think Matt Reeves staying, he really wants this to be about an exploration of Bruce and the Wayne family and the arc they're on. I just feel like Brad Pitt's light is almost too bright. It might outshine whatever you want to do with that, where he is as an actor now, versus, like, 30 years ago when he was Tyler Durden and he's in Seven. I think he was more at a stage where he could sort of be one of the crew. Even Ocean's 11, where he's still a star, and there's many stars in that movie, you can still feel like he was one of the guys. And I just don't know that he can be that anymore. And so in a weird way, I almost feel like he might have taken away a little bit from where I think I want Pattinson to shine and go as part of this movie. So I'm okay with the Hollywood Reporters who's saying he's not in the movie, so that's a pretty credible source. So I'm okay with him not being in the movie. Weirdly, I don't feel that way about ScarJo. As big a star as she is, I actually feel like she still can blend and be part of an ensemble. But Pitt, just to me, it feels like he's in that class of Hollywood star now, where it's like Cruise. It's like there's a few guys with Denzel. It's like the second they show up on screen, it's just like it's impossible to like not see them. And I just worry in this. I really want Bruce to be the alpha of this.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what transpires with that rumor. As of now, he's not. It could stay that way, or we might get a surprise. I don't know, but I wouldn't mind, depending obviously on the role that he's chosen to participate in. We'll see.
I like a lot of the characters, right? We've heard the Court of Owls, they want to go that route. That sounds great. Hush is interesting. I think I'm probably partial to Victor Fries. I realize that might be a little bit more, I don't know, it might be more of a force for what Matt Reeves wants to do, but I just, given the animated version, I just am dying to see a very serious, tortured, dramatic version of Victor Fries someday on screen. But I think all the options that Reeves seems to be exploring at least seem worthwhile and interesting as foils for Gordon and Batman in this. So
again, the potential of Netflix acquiring WB and having ownership of these DC characters brings about a perspective and an idea that I think can ultimately work. Rogues Gallery are very interesting to the Batman world.
Mm-hmm.
You've done the Penguin. What if you had multiple shows dedicated to each of the Rogues Gallery? Again, then you have in your mind, which we did with the Penguin, this is what Batman has to deal with, rather than just throwing Bane in there. And we already know who Bane is and stuff like that, but we're not like, there's not a lot of emotional connections to that character, as far as we know Bane is strong and stuff like that, but we don't know what he's done. We don't know what a lot of his Rogue Gallery had done in this world. So to see that prospect of having multiple Rogue Gallery shows dedicated to each of those individuals or characters, and then we get a situation where Batman has to deal with them now. That's interesting to me. But whatever. Let's see what Netflix has in store for us.
I think your premise is more likely under Netflix. I just don't know how interconnected they'd be willing to be. Although I will say, I did think of one instance where Netflix sort of allowed a mini universe to be built, albeit with ultimately mixed results. And ironically, it was the Defenders. That they allowed Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage and Iron Fist to build toward the Defenders. Now, as we found out, it didn't really work because Iron Fist was terrible and the Defenders wound up being pretty much forgotten. But they did allow them to put together a continuity.
There you go.
I did think of that one example where they allowed it.
That's just strike one. Let's see if they can get to strike two in
idea
their attempt.
Makes a lot of sense, which is they would absolutely do. And that's why I think Sarandos' quote about the Penguin is so notable. They absolutely would do a Victor Fries series. They absolutely would do a Hugo Strange series. They absolutely would do that deep into the gallery, believing that content would bring you in. How much they'd be willing to link it to a single Batman, I don't know. But I also know they would have no hesitation to allow Batman to be in one or more of those series in a small capacity. They would not hesitate.
Interesting situation there. What else we got? We got Tarantino goes off on.
We got. Can we do the at least? Let's do Tarantino at least, and if we have time for Crowe, we'll get to Crowe. But we got to do the Tarantino thing
okay. Yeah, I don't know. This dude just goes off on Paul Dano.
Speaking of Matt Reeves, Batman actors and characters, but yeah.
I don't. Could you shed some light as to how this all transpired?
Yeah, so he was on a podcast in light of his ranking of these top 20 movies of the century, and he put There Will Be Blood at number 5, which obviously is a Paul Thomas Anderson movie starring Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano. And he said on the podcast, the Bret Easton Ellis podcast, he said, quote, this is Tarantino, There Will Be Blood would stand a good chance of being number 1 or number 2 if it didn't have a big giant flaw in it. And the flaw is Paul Dano. Obviously, it's supposed to be a two-hander, but it's also drastically obvious it's not a two-hander. He is weak sauce, man. He is the weak sister. He's just such a weak, uninteresting guy. The weakest effing actor in SAG, end quote.
This is what I'd say about Paul Dano's role in that movie. In this movie, you're presented with the idea of Daniel Day-Lewis's character is not a good guy. You don't really like him too much.
No.
But then there's this other guy that you dislike even more. So you're rooting for the guy, kind of, at the end of it, to get rid of the guy you really don't like. So it's an interesting movie in that you have two characters that you're not supposed to like, that you don't like, but there's this one other character that you don't like. And not for the reasons that Quentin Tarantino is expressing. I didn't mind his performance. I think his performance was great in that movie, and it served a purpose. And it accomplished it. And that's why, that movie is so highly regarded. I don't know what's up with this dude. In terms of Tarantino, like going off on actors, and it's like, yo, why are you going so hard on it's just like, come on, man. It's like this really hurts him, I think, in the long run with other people in terms of now if he decides, I don't know if has he done his 10th movie?
No.
Because that's going to be tough to cast.
Well, this is the thing, right? So first off, I find the comments about the performance are one thing, right? A director has a viewpoint. It's fine to say, like, we talk about all the time on this show, right? Like, we talk about a performance. We're not using the performance as a referendum on the actor.
Yes.
We say, like, this person seemed miscast, or I didn't like what they did with this character. We say nothing about their talent as a performer. To me, for him to say, in his opinion, Paul Dano's performance is a flaw and There Will Be Blood, I have zero problem with that. That's your matter of taste. That's the way you consume the movie. Mm-hmm. When you start saying he's weak and he's the weakest actor in SAG, to me, you're way over the line, and that's classless. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
What kind of personal beef did you have with this guy that you were just waiting to get on a mic and blast him for no reason? That to me is like, I don't care who you are and what your status is in Hollywood. There's just why. There's no point.
Yeah.
No point to that. Although I will say this, for folks who are interested in this whole debate and discussion, Ethan Hawke was on the Joe Rogan Experience the other day. Mm-hmm. He has a 5-minute soundbite about this situation, which I think is amazing.
Okay.
Because he turns it around.
Look it up.
Yeah, it's really good. And Hawke is a really good interview. Shouts to he's married to my high school chemistry lab partner. So shouts to Ethan Hawke. He said one of the fascinating things about hate on the internet, and he said in this case, he's like, do you think Paul Dano knew before this how many people actually loved him for his work? He said, because look at what happened. He's like, Tarantino said what he said, and look at all of these actors and directors who worked with Paul Dano, who then immediately came out and talked about their own experience with Dano, what they liked about him, what they enjoyed about his other work. And he said, none of that would have been as public as it was if Tarantino hadn't lobbed a grenade at him. And so he's like, in some ways, maybe the hate leads to love, and it leads to unexpected things that you didn't know were out there. And so he's like, as a result, he's like, I never get too consumed with the hate because there's always the two sides to it. And he said, like, directors always have a different view on projects. He's like, so then he separated performance from person, where he's like, directors are always talking to me about what they would have done with this picture, or what they would have done in this movie done differently, or, you know, how they would have changed Training Day. He's like, they're always talking about that. So that's what directors do.
Yeah.
He's like, they love and they hate actors and acting. And he's like, but, you know, when it came to this particular exchange, he's like, I don't really know why he said it. He's like, but, you know, but the outpouring of love for Paul Dano, he's like, maybe in the end that wound up being a better thing for him. I thought it was a really interesting subversion of what happened. A really thoughtful viewpoint on it.
Yeah, I agree. Because right now, Tarantino's on the other side of it.
That's not a good look, man. Why? Again, you can attack the performance. That's your right as a critic and a consumer of the product. Attacking the individual solely for the work is below the belt.
Yeah. Let's see how this, again, transpires to his own work. And let's see what else he has to say. Because obviously a lot of people have something to say about what he said. And is very off-putting. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
You want to just finish off with Russell Crowe?
Yeah, let's do it.
Russell Crowe goes off on Gladiator 2. And if you've been watching this channel, you already know that we don't care too much about Gladiator 2. We didn't know why. This movie has been rumored for years. And ever since it was rumored, we were like, what? Gladiator 2 for what? And Russell Crowe speaks on it. Brian, what did he say?
Well, also, this got out of control because you had Ridley Scott saying it was the best thing he'd ever done. You had people talking about Denzel as a lock for a third Oscar. And then the movie came out and you're like,
this is not it. This is not it.
I don't know what else to tell you.
And Brian said it best. We gonna see if he's lying.
and they were lying. Denzel, to me, is not great in this movie. Nah. The movie's not great. Now, I think Mescal's pretty good, but the movie's just sloppy. Like the stuff that's interesting, you don't get enough time with, and there's too all over the place, and it's just, and it validated the why. Like, why did they have to go back and make this? Well, they finally went to Maximus himself. And so he said on Aussie radio, quote, I think the recent sequel that, you know, we don't have to name out loud, I don't know why you treat it that way, is a really unfortunate example of even the people in that engine room not actually understanding what made the first one special. It wasn't the pomp, it wasn't the circumstance, and it wasn't the action. It was the moral core, end quote.
Watching Gladiator, like, I still to this day, if it's on, I watch pieces of it. And the reason why I watch pieces of it is those moments where Crowe's character has these connections to these other characters. And it's his code and his moral code that I think propels the story. What he's after, what he's willing to do, what he's not willing to do, what he's forced to do. But it's all on these conversations that he has with a lot of different individuals. I think that's what made the movie dope. And in Gladiator 2, there wasn't much of that. There was instances of that. But at the end of the day, like you said, it was done in a way that didn't really live up to that, those things that made the first Gladiator great.
No. The most interesting relationship, the most interesting triangle in the movie is Mescal's character seeking revenge on Pedro Pascal's character. And then for one brief moment, you find out that Pedro Pascal's character is actually more loyal to the Maximus view of the world.
Yeah.
And then you don't get to actually explore that at all because he's killed. that was actually the movie that sort of could have been interesting, but instead devolves into this Denzel Washington puppeteer trying to take over the empire, which it just doesn't land.
At the end of it is Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. It's like, this is ridiculous right here. I don't know why we're watching
That's
this.
amazing. That's amazing. But then Crowe goes on to say something interesting about Gladiator 1, which we did not know. So he takes a swing at the same people in the room in Gladiator 2 when they were back working on Gladiator 1, which, as we know, was an Academy Award-winning film. And he says, quote, the amount of times they, meaning those people, the executives, suggested sex scenes and stuff like that for Maximus, it's like you're taking away his power. So you're trying to say at the same time he had this kind of relationship with his wife, but he was effing this other girl? What are you talking about? That's crazy, end quote.
Execs, man. Execs. They mess it up, yo. They mess it up, yo. Thankfully, they didn't do that with Gladiator 1, but it seemed like they did have a lot of more say in Gladiator 2. I wonder who was the people pushing back in Gladiator 1 and be like, yo, we ain't doing this.
Sounds like, well, it was clearly him. And remember, Russell Crowe was in his career at that point. He is on one of the biggest ascents that we've seen. And how this is the stretch that he goes on sort of in this late 90s, to like early aughts, where like he doesn't miss, right? I mean, he's like Insider, Beautiful Mind, Gladiator. He's just like Oscar. Like he's
LA
just
Confidential, yes.
LA Confidential. Every single movie that he's in is awards fair, box office, leading man. It kind of like goes off the rails when he does Proof of Life and he actually has the affair with Meg Ryan for real, and then like it becomes tabloid stuff. But like, yeah, he has this like 5-year stretch where he is the man, and like he is the man on set. So clearly he's basically being like, there's no effing way I'm doing that. Yeah, and he winds up being right because he's right about the character. But he seems to be saying that this has always been something they wanted to do with the Gladiator franchise, and maybe it got out of control a little bit in Gladiator 2. Even that's why like Ridley Scott wants to do Gladiator 3, and I'm like, no.
A lot of stuff is happening in the news and entertainment, movies, TV. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of the Avengers Doomsday direct sequel to Endgame. Let us know how you feel about their strategy in releasing 4 different trailers 4 weeks in a row. So if you see it this Saturday, next Saturday is going to be a different one. The following Saturday is going to be a different one. And the following Saturday after that is going to be a different one. That is interesting. It's smart. But let's see if how that goes. Again, we've talked about on this channel quite a bit of time at the possibilities in terms of TV to movies, and we're sort of seeing that now with Punisher having its movie special on Disney, and that going into Brand New Day with Spider-Man. To me, that's going to be very interesting to watch to see how that goes. ScarJo, again, I think she's either playing Poison Ivy or the woman from Mask of the Phantasm, his love interest. I think that'll be interesting
Andrea
to see.
Beaumont, I think was her name.
Yes.
Yep.
We'll see if Brad Pitt is actually going to be involved in this. It seems right now like it's a no. Well, we'll see how this moves forward. He probably may have had a conversation, Brian, and may have said, let's see. And then the headlines, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. And the whole Tarantino thing was just, I think he's a brilliant director. I think he's made, obviously, great films for us to enjoy. But his take on individuals and his freedom to just say the things that he wants to say, which is his right, but you paint yourself in a way that people may not want to work with you now. Who knows? But he probably may think Ted DiBiase. Everybody's got a price, right? Russell Crowe speaks his mind on Gladiator 2. And I'm pretty sure he asked himself the same question when this was announced. Why? Why do we want to do this? It doesn't make sense. But people look at the success of previous stuff and want to just, again, squeeze the orange juice, rub them together, get as much as you can out of it.
And Gladiator 2 did make almost $500 million worldwide. That's why there's a conversation about Gladiator 3, just for the record. But
yeah, but like...
It didn't make money because the budget was so high, but it did have an audience, even though it was not a great film.
So yeah, let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of each of these topics that we discussed. And remember, again, if you haven't heard it anywhere else, you heard it here first on the Nerd Gen Report.